I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings,
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legends Podcast, and I have a very special guest with us this week, Mr. Dan Solomon, who is the president of the Olympia. He promotes the Mr. Olympia every year, which is a huge undertaking, the biggest show of the year. And this year is going to be a very special year because it is the 60th Mr. Olympia, which started way back in 1965. So, Dan, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're a very busy man, so thanks for joining us.
I appreciate the invitation. What I love about coming on this show is most of the other shows, they want to talk about the business of bodybuilding, or they want to talk about, all kinds of different trends and things that impact that side of the game. But when I get to come here, I get to talk about the thing that I love the most, and that's just bodybuilding. Let's talk about the eras. Let's talk about the champions. Let's talk about all the things that sort of got us to fall in love with this to begin with, because one of the slippery slopes I know that I walk is when you get so wrapped up in the business side of what we do, and you're so focused on balance sheets and P&Ls and all kinds of things that, are important, right? Because we have to run a business to grow the sport.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just miss talking about, who should have won that 2007 Olympiad.
Right. Yeah. The nostalgia.
All that. I really enjoy that. So it's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be, like I said, a special Mr. Olympia because it is the 60th. And Mr. Olympia has been around a long time. It's been around longer than the Super Bowl. It started way back in 1965.
It sure has. And, it's an exciting time, the 60th year. I was actually on the phone the other day with, if you can imagine, Betty Weeder. And,
really? Wow.
I always try to check in. I try to check in with Betty whenever I can, of course.
Yeah.
Your audience. I don't need to tell your audience who Betty is. Obviously, they know.
Yeah.
But Betty and her husband, and I guess you could say, and her brother-in-law, they co-founded the event for which I am privileged to run. And I always like to reach out to her and just kind of let her know what's happening, what we're doing, where we're going to be, how we're growing. And look, this was their life for so long.
Yeah.
It's very much the Super Bowl of our sport. It is the rarefied air of that mountaintop. And I always say, it's any bodybuilding thing, you rattle off a year and you connect it to the Olympia champion, right? That's what makes the Olympians so special. So we got big things planned for this year. We're ready.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Betty Weeder because I know that you always remember Joe Weeder. And I remember, I think a couple of years ago when the Olympia was maybe in Orlando, and I went to that seminar that you have on Sunday with all the winners. And I remember at the end of the seminar, you took the mic and you told everybody in the audience, you said, I always want you guys to remember Joe Weeder. And I'm sure a lot of people today don't even know who Joe Weeder is because, Joe Weeder has been, I don't know how long ago he passed away, probably over 10 years ago now.
Yep.
But a lot of the younger people who follow the sport, who got into the sport with all these new divisions, they don't even know who Joe Weeder is. And Joe Weeder is the one who created the Mr. Olympia. So you always kind of remember his legacy. And I think that's great. And also like the Tampa Pro that we have out here in Tampa, you have the Ben Weeder a Lifetime Achievement Award that you give out every year. So you do remember those individuals, Joe and Ben Weeder, who started Mr. Olympia and who really started bodybuilding, IFBB professional bodybuilding as we know it.
I try to, sometimes I'm guilty of disconnecting sometimes when we get wrapped up, but I really, really work hard to remind myself and everyone who will listen that, none of us are doing this if it wasn't for the courage of Joe to sort of envision this world of fitness and transformation and muscle and all that back in the 1940s when the world was very different. And the thought of bodybuilding was almost absurd at that time. So the fact that Joe sort of championed that cause and ushered in not just a sport, but really built the foundation for an entire industry. And, let's be reminded, it's not just the competitors. There are photographers, judges, videographers, content providers, hosts. The list goes on and on of people who make some version of a living doing the things that were created by Joe Weeder. So I always try to do it, but I think in any sport, John, the disconnect happens. I'm sure that today's modern day baseball players, they come in and they probably don't know the people that laid down the groundwork. I mean, when you think about how important it is, like the Jackie Robinson Day every
Hmm.
year, which of
Yeah.
course Jackie Robinson is the pioneer and laid the path and built the groundwork for African Americans to be part of the game of baseball. Now we
Yeah.
celebrate Jackie, so we know that story really well. And I always say, if I could ever sit down with people, always ask me if I could ever sit down with anybody, dead or alive, anybody, I would
Yeah.
choose to sit down and talk to Jackie Robinson because
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I think he's remarkable and his story is amazing. But there's other Jackie Robinson stories out there in other communities and other places that people just don't know, and those stories aren't told. So I think we all have a responsibility, and that's one of the reasons why I commend you for what you're doing, because a lot of your audience will remember the name Peter McGuff. Now, Peter McGuff, to me, was the preeminent historian of all time, and
Hmm.
also the most talented writer in the history of bodybuilding. And when Peter passed, we were concerned that there wouldn't be somebody to continue telling those stories. And you're doing that. So I appreciate what you're doing as well. But
Well,
yeah, we
thank
got to
you.
remember where we came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We got to remember our roots for sure.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, since this is the 60th, Mr. Olympia, do you guys have plans to bring back some of the former champions and, kind of talk about the history of the sport?
Yeah, this event is filled with so many, I guess you could say, surprises. I mean, the one that probably won't be a big surprise is when many of the former champions show up. Of course, there have been 18 Mr. Olympias in the history of the event.
Yeah.
Five of them have passed away, which brings us to 13. And if you can imagine, three of them are actually going to be competing in the show. And
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Derek Lunsford, Heidi Chupan, Brandon Curry. Um, and then a lot of the familiar faces will be there, and Jay and Dexter and Ronnie and Samir and others.
Hmm.
There'll be a number of our past champions will be there. We have some really amazing moments planned to celebrate that history, celebrate those big wins by those champions. So if you're somebody who appreciates the rich history of bodybuilding and has been following the sport for a little bit, there'll be a lot of goosebumps, I think, in Las
Yeah.
Vegas in
Oh, that's
October.
great. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think that's important for the new people to the sport to show them these champions, and I mean, those were some amazing competitions back then. And when you think about like Larry Scott, the first winner, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read any of the stories about when he won that contest, but they said there was like a 20-minute standing ovation. I mean, these guys were gods back then, so it's just unbelievable how well they were received back then.
It is. It's amazing. And when you think about how far we've come, we're still getting the ovations.
Yeah.
We're giving out a lot more money. They're competing in front of massive crowds. We put our tickets for our Saturday night Olympia finals on sale several months ago, and in 3 days, every single ticket that we had for sale was gone.
Jeez.
And you think about how far we've come. And I'm convinced that we could put this thing in an arena or a stadium and we would still sell out the tickets. There's so much demand for the Olympia. And that's
Mhm.
also a testament to the work that other promoters are doing to promote the sport in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
The Olympia enjoys the benefits of the global popularity of fitness, of bodybuilding, and all the divisions. So it's very much a team sport when it comes to promoting. When the Olympia sells out, yeah, sure, it's because we have the best athletes in the world. We're the biggest, most prestigious event, but it's also a product of the work that is happening in places that nobody even talks about. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of shows from Dubai to LA to Columbus to parts of Europe and Asia and down in Brazil and anywhere you could think of where they're growing these communities. And as a result, of course, the show, at the top of the food chain benefits from that, but we're seeing growth all around. And that's
Yeah.
incredibly encouraging. It's not all about the Olympia, but we're proud to do our part to try to, set a standard for everyone else.
Yeah, bodybuilding has got to be bigger now than it's ever been, right? I mean, it seems like there's pro shows every single weekend somewhere around the world, like you said. And with all the different divisions that we have now, it's got to be huge compared to what it was ever been before in the past.
It's massive. It really is. I mean, I'm just going to say it. There's no other way to put it. What Jim Mannion, Tyler Mannion have done around the world to bring the NPC, the Pro League, to different regions, different countries, different cities on any given Saturday night.
Yeah.
There's several events going on. Remember, it used to be where years ago, John, when we were kind of starting off doing this, we could all go to a city, we would all see each other, right?
Hmm.
There's an event this weekend in Tampa. We'd go there and we would all see each other, all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
The downside to growth is if I meet you in Tampa for Tim Gardner's Tampa Pro, the chances are pretty good that many of the people that we're used to seeing are going to be divided around the world in other events. So we're
Yeah.
not seeing each other the way we used to because
Yeah.
there's so much growth, there's so many events, and the caliber of the events has also improved. But there's downsides to growth too, because selfishly speaking, we love to connect. We would go to an event, we would all meet for dinner, and we would tell stories and we would talk about our
Hmm.
family. Amazing. That's not happening as much anymore because, like I said, on a given Saturday night, you could be in Tampa, I could be in LA, Bob Chick could be in Italy, and Sean Ray could be somewhere on the other side of the world. So
Right.
that's kind of the way it is now. But
Yeah.
overall, credit to what they're doing in Pittsburgh because it really has grown rapidly.
Yeah. Jim Mannon has really, since he started this in 1982, I believe,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable what he's done to really grow the sport everywhere, and how they've added all these different divisions and everything.
Yep.
So talk about this year, Dan. I mean, you guys are back in Vegas now, and it sounds like you're going to be out there for a while now, right? Because you got a new venue at a new Resorts World, which is a new hotel.
Well, yeah. So we're at Resorts World, and for those who aren't familiar with the latest around the Las Vegas Strip, it is important to mention that Resorts World is located on the side of the strip where the Las Vegas Convention Center is, where the Fontainebleau is.
Okay.
And the hotel was only built about 3.5 years ago for $4.5 billion. It was the second most amount of money that's ever been spent on a hotel on the strip. And it was
Wow.
only beat by the Fontainebleau only because that came after. But this hotel is really something. The things that we're going to be able to do from a production standpoint, just an overall fan experience standpoint. It has some of the best restaurants in town. It's home to Zouk nightclub, which is like the #1 nightclub in all of Las Vegas, if you're into that sort of thing. There's just lots of, it's home to one of the best spas in Las Vegas, one of the best gyms in Las Vegas. And I'm not just saying this in promoter speak. This hotel is known for having so many things that really make being there easy and a whole lot of fun. And then, of course, they have a great theater that hosts some of the biggest productions, the biggest acts, biggest entertainers in the world. So we're going to be using that theater. And then across the street, and when I say across the street, it's across the street, but it's borderline a walk because Vegas across the street isn't just across the
Yeah.
street, but the Las Vegas Convention Center is over there, and it's a great home. Of course, the Olympia Expo was at the Las Vegas Convention Center years ago. You guys remember, so we're bringing it back to the South Hall of the LVCC, and it's going to be a great home for what's turned out to be a highly evolved Olympia Expo. This is not your grandmother's Olympia Expo. I'll tell you that. We have a lot more going on. Tim Gardner's been a big part of helping us grow that expo with Ken Flynn and that whole team out there, and it's just turned into something pretty impressive. There's events covering all corners of fitness and physical culture and combat sports and just about anything you could think of. It's all going to be at the Olympia this weekend. So the Olympia, I know, has long been viewed very much as a bodybuilding event, but man, it sure has evolved into something far greater. And I can't wait for everybody to come and see it. We have more exhibitors this year than we've had in 10 years.
Wow.
So that's an exciting thing. And there's just a lot of excitement surrounding the event. And the most important thing is the city of Las Vegas as a whole has really gotten behind it. They actually, I don't know if you guys caught it, but a few weeks ago they had
Did
us
see
out
that. Yeah.
and they presented us with the key to the city, the key to the Las Vegas Strip, which is a very rare honor that's given only to specific things and specific celebrities in the city who really make an impact on their
Wow.
community, on their commerce. And we're very grateful for that. The commissioner, the mayor, they were all there, the president of the hotels, and they all were quick to point out the impact that the Olympia has had. We've been in Las Vegas, I think, 23 times, which means we've brought every bit of 1 million plus people to that city who eat in their restaurants, stay in their hotels, watch their shows, and we become a real partner to that city. And it's nice to see them recognizing the Olympia much the same way they would recognize the Super Bowl or any other major event that comes to their city. So Yeah, we're feeling really good about the relationship. And you asked the question about, are we going to be there for the foreseeable future? I'll just respond by saying, I hope so. I really do. Because when you have my job and every single year you have to hit reset and plan an event in a new location, it's a whole lot of work, and we're not afraid to do it. We have an amazing team. I'm so grateful to work with Jake Wood and the rest of our group to really try to do some special things. Jake is amazing that he gives us the ability and the resources to do some really cool things. But it's it's definitely ideal if we could stay in the same spot for a couple years, just so we can tweak and have the opportunities to improve on that, and
Yeah.
also enable me to save some of the gray hair that I'm growing from having to start over every single year. Because hitting
Yeah.
anybody who's out there in the event business, I don't care if you're planning a birthday party or the royal wedding, it doesn't matter. When you're doing it at the same place every year, it makes life a whole lot easier.
I'll
And
bet.
we haven't had a chance to do that in many years.
Plus, it seems like it's at a better date this year too, because it's in October, and I think that would be a better time to go out there. I mean, I know you guys had it in December a couple of years ago, and that's kind of off season, I guess. Close to Christmas and stuff. And then last year was in November,
Yep.
so I think having it in October is kind of brings it back to where the Olympia used to be, right? Because it used to always be in September, October.
I like October. I think it's good because it keeps people away from the holidays. And
Yeah,
we understand companies don't want to invest time and resources to put on a full-blown exhibition close to December. It also keeps us in a nice climate. Vegas in October is beautiful.
yeah, it
And
is. Yeah,
blue skies, 70-degree weather. It's gorgeous. So that way
yeah,
you're still using the pools, you're still enjoying the day clubs, the nightclubs, the cabanas, the pool parties, all that other stuff. It still is a part of the Vegas experience. But you're also out of that summer heat because hell, I've been going over there about every 4 weeks over the last 3 or 4 months, and I've been out there for some days that man,
brutal. Yeah,
you could bake cookies on the floor. It really is something. So
yeah,
I think October is going to be a great spot and a great time to bring everybody out there.
yeah. Is that Chris Bumstead behind you there, Dan?
Let's see. Yeah, that is a Chris Bumstead cover. I got a Jake Cutler
Oh
cover.
yeah, there you go.
You'll
Okay.
see over this shoulder a statue that's probably very familiar to a lot of your visitors. That is the Eugene Sandow Trophy,
Yeah.
which of course we give out every year to the #1 bodybuilder in the world. It is every bit of 40, 50 pounds. It's heavy. And
Wow.
I keep one in my office because when folks come in to visit, they always enjoy the photo ops to take a picture with
Oh
the
yeah.
Sandow Trophy. And yeah, the base of the Sandow Trophy actually has inscribed all the prior winners. So it's a very special treasure, and I'm proud to have it here in my office. But this year's Olympia trophy, which will be, I should say, this year's Sandow Trophy, which will be given to Mr. Olympia next month, because it's the 60th, we're going to do something that we've only done one other time for the 50th, and it is actually going to be dipped in gold.
Oh,
So
okay. I remember that when
yeah,
you did
I
that for
have
the
an
50th.
what's that? What's that, John?
I said I remember when you did that for the 50th. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Phil's a little bit upset because Phil liked being the only one that had the gold Sandow. So unfortunately, unless Phil wants to come out of retirement and try to win it this year, someone named Derek or Hadi or Andrew Jacked or Samson Dada or Nick Walker or whomever is going to stake claim to a gold Sandow. We'll have to find out. But it's beautiful. I just saw it. It just came off the manufacturing place, and it really came out beautifully.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, I mentioned Chris because I was just going to say, with now we're in a whole different era with the magazines gone, and we have social media, and of course Chris is the leader. I think he's got to be the most popular person in the fitness industry with 24 million followers on Instagram. And I just saw he did his press conference today announcing he's with Gymshark. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, and how lucky they are to have him. Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris has been such a great champion and such a good friend. He's always makes himself available. And he, of course, became a father this year. So there's just a lot of really exciting things going on in Chris's life. And we're excited to see if Chris could come back and win another title. The ad, I still remember a number of years ago when we were talking, Jim Mannion, Tyler, Bob, all of us, we were sitting around talking about this new division called Classic Physique, and
yeah,
we were trying to make sense of it at that time. And then we decided to bring it into the Olympia so that way we could crown a Classic Physique Olympia champion. And I never would have imagined that the creation of that title would have turned somebody into a megastar
Me
the way it
neither.
has Chris. And Chris deserves credit for that, because not only has he done the work, but he's also put himself out there in a way that makes people really connect with him. And he's got a real authenticity. And I like Chris very much. And it'll be interesting to see. He's going to have his work cut out for him, though. There's a lot of really good challenges coming on this year. And Chris is trying to hang on. So I'd love to see if he can pull off another one, but it's not going to be easy, and it's not a foregone conclusion. He still has some work to do, but yeah, I'm real proud of Chris. He's made an incredible life for his family, and he has also showed other competitors who come along, this is how you do it. And
Yeah.
he's kind of rewritten the playbook. But yeah, I saw that news from Chris today, and I'm really happy for him and everybody over there at Gymshark as well.
I was a little worried. I was thinking maybe he's going to announce that he's not going to compete, but then I was like, I'm looking at the training videos of him training, and he's training so hard. I figured that wasn't the case. So
yeah, I would have liked to think I would have gotten the courtesy heads up on that.
yeah, right.
I wasn't as nervous about it, but yeah, that would have been unfortunate. But look, it would have been to somebody else's benefit, because one thing that we've learned in the world of bodybuilding, and look, I love Chris Bumstead, I love Arnold, I love Lee Haney, I love Jay Cutler, I love all these guys. But what we have learned is no one is bigger than the sport, because as those eras have passed, we got past the people when Arnold was ready to retire, people thought, what's going to happen to bodybuilding now? When Jay Cutler was getting ready to retire, when Ronnie Coleman was getting ready to retire, these were such larger than life figures in the sport, and people were wondering what's going to happen now that these guys are no longer part of it. And what we have learned is, with respect to all of them, it doesn't matter, because the passion and the support for bodybuilding and fitness and all the things that we do, it's so great and it's so vast that it's larger than any one competitor. And that's why, I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of promoters, they get really worked up over who competes in their show and who doesn't. And, they get really worked up about it, almost to the point where it's insane how much some promoters get, dare I say, their panties in a bunch over who's going to compete in their show. But to be honest with you, put on a great show, put on a great production, and whoever's on that stage is on that stage. It doesn't really matter. And we've learned that. I remember one of the first Olympias that I produced, I think it was 2019. That year, our reigning champion wasn't in the lineup. He had, legal issues that he was going through, unfortunately. And Kai Green, who people were hoping was going to be there, wasn't there. Phil Heath wasn't there. All the biggest names weren't there for different reasons. They were all, and then we ended up with a lineup that a lot of people were saying was one of the weakest lineups we've had. And we heard all the criticisms come in, and, oh, this year's lineup's going to be terrible and this and that and all that. And at the end of the day, it was at the Orleans Arena. I'll never forget it. I'm standing there and I'm looking around this arena, and I've told the story before, and I'm looking at all these big names seated in the first few rows of the venue. And I'm looking on the stage where a lot of the big names were not there. And yet every seat in the building was packed. The place was intense. And when Brandon Curry won the title, he was Mr. Olympia. He was the #1 bodybuilder in the world, and he was treated like it. And it was such an incredible moment. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't. That's why people say, are you worried? What's going to happen with that division when Chris retires? What's going to happen when Derek moves? It doesn't matter, because there are great, talented, passionate fans and athletes coming up right behind them. And I see no signs of any of it slowing down. Yeah.
And I'm glad what you mentioned about Chris too, how he's handled himself and how he's given the example. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he's so grounded, and he hasn't let this go to his head at all. If anyone can let it go to his head, it would have been him, with more followers than anybody. But he knows what's important. He knows what's, the important things in his life, and he keeps that in perspective. So credit to him for sure. He's a great champion.
He really is. He really is. And you know what? This current crop of champions, if you look up and down the division, there's 11 divisions if you count wheelchair. It's 11 divisions in the Olympia. And you look, and I'm not going to name them all, but, you look at the Bikini Olympia champion, Jen Dory, a great ambassador for that division. Derek Lunsford carries himself like a champion. He's been wonderful. He's really done all the right things this year to put the sport in the best possible light. And then you just go on and on. Of course, Bumstead and Andrea Shaw on the Miss Olympia side, and Ryan Terry has done a great job in the men's physique. And I could go through all of them, but we have a great group of champions this year. I told them that at the champions seminar that we have on Sunday after the show. I told them that I was so proud of that group, because I had seen all of them over the years do hospital visits and lift up their fans and just do all the right things to carry themselves like champions. I've seen them go speak at schools and educate kids on nutrition and living their healthiest, strongest life. I've seen all of that from this group of champions. So for me, that the fact that they won, I thought it was just a great opportunity for the sport to have individuals who understand that role in those positions to spread the message. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Chris and all of them, they've all done a great job this year.
Yeah. So what are your goals then, Dan, for the Olympia? I mean, it seems like it's such a big production and you got so many divisions and everything, and you've done a fantastic job with it. It seems like it's getting bigger and bigger every year, despite having to move it from venue to venue because you had to go to Florida a few times with the pandemic and things like that. But you continue to move it forward. Do you have any bigger long range goals for it? I mean, it's such a huge thing right now with all the different divisions and everything.
Yeah, it's funny. There's always goals. The objective at the end of the day, it's always simple. Connect with new audiences. Figure out new ways to go and connect with different groups, connect with different sports, tie yourself closer to the entertainment industry, connect with other fitness disciplines, connect with different types of media who connect with different parts of the world. And you just kind of do that every single day. It's just like training and building a Mr. Olympia physique. Every day you get up, you go to the gym, and you just work on things. You just work on your bringing up your hamstrings, and you work on your conditioning, and you look at rounding out the muscle, and you work at you focus on how the muscle's laying beneath the skin, and you focus on all the minutia. And little by little by little, you just kind of do it. And that's how we've approached this thing. We just want to connect with new audiences because we find my formula has been real simple. The more audiences you connect with, the more people that you inspire, the more people that you educate and motivate, the more people who get to stick their toes in this water, right? And experience all of this, the more things come of it, the more new sponsors enter into the equation, the more new revenue comes in, and with new revenue creates different opportunities to give out more prize money, to create higher quality productions. So there's just so many things, but it all comes down to just growth. And when I go to the Olympia each year, and I'm sure you've been the last few years, you see the celebrities there. There's representatives from production studios. There's individuals who want to use our audience to promote their movie projects. And the best part about it is they are coming from different categories in different parts of the world. When you look at the Olympia logo right now, two of our major sponsors, Integral Medica is the largest supplement company in Brazil, and NewTek is the leading equipment manufacturer, amazing company, in Korea. And that didn't used to be the case. It used to be where you go and you look at the main sponsors of the Olympia, and it was just 4 or 5 American supplement brands. But now we're seeing new categories, new parts of the world, new languages, new currencies, all this stuff. And it's really lent a lot to how much we're growing. They're seeing it at the Pro League, at the NPC. They're seeing it across the board. And I will say this to anybody who's promoting other events, because I know a lot of companies, they look to us for guidance. Don't always go back to the familiar places. Don't always go back to the familiar places to promote your shows. Don't always go back to the familiar places to find sponsors. Have the courage to go somewhere new. And even if it's a little uncomfortable, and even if it's culturally a little bit different, go there and you'll be amazed, because there's nothing more gratifying than getting off an airplane in a part of the world and seeing the way this sport is received, seeing how much it means to people. I know you've traveled, John, you've seen it, you've experienced it. You've been a very high profile fixture in bodybuilding for a long time. And you've seen the way you can get off a plane in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and you see how they respond to you there, or you can go to Tokyo. It really is an incredible thing to see. And that's a big part of what we do. I have it in my heart that the Olympia in the not so distant future will be held in a stadium. I think that's how big we can go with this. Now, a lot of people might say, well, a stadium isn't ideal for a bodybuilding show, and there's probably some issues there. It would probably have to be an indoor stadium, right? But I look at WrestleMania, I look at some of these other shows. I know that the UFC this weekend will be at the Sphere, so that's going to be amazing for the UFC. But I think that's what it's all about. It's going places, and I'm not afraid of seating capacity. I'm convinced that if there were 38,000 seats, I'd sell them. If there were 50,000 seats, I would sell them. Of course, now we're still in that world of Vegas theater type production venues, which have smaller capacities. So we can sell those out with our eyes closed in 2 or 3 days. But I really think that there's opportunities to go for it and just bring massive numbers of people into these buildings and just be a part of an Olympia that would just change everything in one night. And that's sort of a little bit of a bucket list goal of mine.
Okay.
I don't talk about it much, but we'll get there. But in the meantime, we're just trying to continue to do it better.
Wow. Would you ever think about moving it to like Dubai or someplace like that? You know, because I know Dubai has had some good bodybuilding shows there. There's a lot of money out there.
Yeah, we have so much respect for some people in those parts of the world. Dubai is a great example. There's just tremendous passion over there, business resources, great leadership over there. We have great relationships over there. So yeah, it's definitely something we talk about. I know Jake is devoted to the idea of exploring new ways to grow the Olympia and to do that. You just have to find the right way to do it, because remember, when you do something like that, then you're going to alienate a lot of long-standing, loyal attendees, sponsors, exhibitors. So you have to figure out a way to do it. There's also some scenarios where maybe we could potentially take a small part of the Olympia experience and bring that to another part of the world. So that way there could be real Olympia titles being presented in other parts of the world, while we still have the Mr. Olympia or the Olympia weekend as we know it here in the States. So there's a lot of scenarios that we're constantly exploring.
Okay.
But you can be sure that I say more than ever, there's a very open-minded approach to all things. We have found that we have been presented with so many challenges over the last few years. And we're fortunate enough to have overcome so many things that we're almost fearless now. We're almost fearless. We've reached a point where we're not afraid to test certain scenarios and to go into different environments and to get out of our comfort zone, because we have found that we have performed and we have delivered, and we want to continue to raise the bar, and we do not want to get comfortable. So yeah, don't be shocked if something like that happens. I just don't know when it's going to be.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right, Dan. Well, thank you for joining me for this interview. I'm sure you got a lot more interviews coming up over the next few weeks to talk about the Olympia, the 60th Olympia. And we'll look forward to watching it. If you're not going to be there in Las Vegas, then it'll be on pay-per-view, but it's going to be an event you don't want to miss for sure.
Yeah. And I'll also add that one new thing that we're doing this year, which is going to be pretty amazing, because the tickets sold so fast. And quite frankly, we know tickets to the Olympia are expensive. We know that.
Yeah.
We are producing for the first time ever at the host venue, the host hotel, the official Olympia watch party, which is going to be cool. Now, this isn't just a room with a couple TVs. This is Zouk nightclub, which is the hottest, most technologically advanced night spot in all of Vegas. And there are viewing screens everywhere you can look, above your head, to your left, to your right, to the floor, to everywhere. Incredible production value. And there's bar service and food, and
wow,
it's going
that's
to
awesome.
be an exciting night. And I'll be honest, and so what we're going to do, and then we'll have celebrities there, we'll have hosts there. There's going to be a lot there. But I'll be honest, if I would, and I'm not just saying this to promote it, if I weren't in the position that I was in where I had to go work at the event, right? I think no one is going to have more fun that night than the people attending the official watch party. It's going to be a really good time, a very comfortable environment, a lot of great energy, a lot of great socializing and networking.
Yeah.
And you could have a few drinks while you're there and just have a good time. Zouk nightclub. And there are still some tickets for that. You can go to MrOlympia.com, go to the tickets tab, and while you're there, click on the watch party. And like I said, if you haven't already gotten your tickets for Saturday night, the bad news is you're not gonna be able to get them because they're sold out. But the good news is, show up at the watch party and experience that and be a part of bodybuilding and fitness fans, beautiful people, and all kinds of cool stuff are going to be going on at the watch party at Zouk while the Saturday night show is happening. So you'll enjoy the hell out of that. So that's just something I'll put in your ear. If
so are they gonna close the club then? It's just gonna be the watch party?
Even better than that. So the place is going to be closed off from like 6 o'clock till the end of the Olympia finals, which will go to about 10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then once the show is over, then the doors open for a regular night at Zouk nightclub, which, as you know, is a crazy party. But if you're already inside, you don't have to go out and go back in. So your ticket to the Olympia watch party will get you in for the whole night. So if you want to stay in there for 5, 6, 7 hours and just party till you know when, you can do that. So yeah, so you can get best of all worlds, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Yeah.
Plus, you got the food and the drink.
All of it. Yeah, no, it's going to be different. I'll tell you, it's going to be a bodybuilding environment with elements that we've never experienced. And I will say the viewing experience there, I can't even put it into words. We actually put out a teaser video. I think it's up on my Instagram. You guys can check it out. But I put up a teaser video, which kind of shows a couple shots of what that space looks like.
Wow.
And it's jaw-dropping in terms of what the overall experience is like at Zouk nightclub, which happens to be at Resorts World. So if you're staying there and some of your friends are going to the show and you just maybe didn't want to get a ticket, didn't spend money on a ticket, couldn't get a ticket, whatever it is, just go over to the watch party. I think it's $75. Go in there and have a great time.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great idea. All right, I'll put all the links to everything in the description here. But Dan, thanks again for joining me on the show, and wish you the best with another successful Olympia production this year. I'll be out there checking it out, of course, and I'm sure everybody who can't make it out there will just watch it on the pay-per-view, as they always do. But best of luck to you, Dan, in the next few weeks getting everything ready. I know you're super busy, and I appreciate your time here.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate all your support of not just the Olympia, but also the sport of bodybuilding. We always enjoy following your content.
All right. Thank you, Dan. All right. Take care, Dan.
Cool. Good stuff. All right, bro.